What's up, you antique bike nuts, and welcome to episode 17 of A Bike and a Beer, the show where every Saturday I feature a rare, stunning vintage motorcycle with an appropriately paired beer. Thank you also for joining me for that intro video. So fun to film. Felt like a real Peaky Blinder. And if you're joining me for the first time today, welcome. Thank you so much. Glad you're here. Feel free to subscribe in that lower corner there. If you're part of that awesome crew that joins me every week, thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. Folks, this outstanding machine in front of me is 100 years old. This is a 1922 Douglas 4 horsepower B22. It is beautiful. It is so stunning that in 2019, at the Quail motorcycle gathering, my father and I took home first place in the antique class with this very bike here. An incredible day with friends and family that I will never forget. Okay, so what beer to go with an antique British motorcycle? Well, we're going to need an antique British beer. And for that, I'm going to my friends Samuel Smith over in Tadcaster, oldest brewery in Tadcaster, founded in 1758. I bet they were throwing these back in the Douglas factory. Okay, let's open it up and let's see what it's all about. This is a pure brewed organic lager. Soft, malty, smooth. Cheers, boys. Great work. All right, let's talk about Douglas. If you told me you've never heard of the Douglas motorcycle brand, it wouldn't really surprise me. They're an old brand, founded in 1907, out of business by 1957. So they were actually founded by a Scottish gentleman named William Douglas, and he had a foundry. He kind of specialized in shoe and boot lasts, which are these things right here. He was a real craftsman, and they were really good at foundry work, which undoubtedly contributed to their success in building motorcycles. But his oldest son, whose name was Willie, was fascinated by motorcycles at the turn of the century. And so by 1907, he talked his dad into building some bikes. And that's exactly what they did. They specialized in opposed twins or boxer motors like you see here. They got involved in racing, did tons of research and development to make really practical, reliable, and also speedy bikes. By World War I, that's when they really blew up as a company. The British Army really wanted Douglas bikes for the front lines, and so they started producing them a lot. They got a bigger factory. They started cranking out thousands of bikes, whereas before that they were cranking out maybe a few hundred a year. They actually made over 70,000 bikes for the war efforts. Very similar to this. They didn't change too much between World War I and the bike sitting in front of us here. Okay, there's a ton to unpack on this bike, so let's get to it. We're going to start with the motor. 600cc opposed twin. That's what Douglas was known for. Iron barrels, cast aluminum motor here. Incredible work. It's easy to see that they were masters of their craft, which they started out doing foundry work. This beautiful timing cover with this handsome font here with Douglas 4 horsepower B22 stamped in it. That's how you know it's a 1922. Also by the engine number, which falls into the 1922 numbering sequence. You'll notice this is a wet sump machine. All of the oil is housed within the motor. I love this cap here. You unscrew it. It's a rather large cap. You take it off, and then this filler neck slides out so you can actually pour oil in without bumping into this intake. Is that cool or what? So the metering here on the oil, you can see it exits from the bottom here, slides up through here through the meter. You can control the oil flow right here with this little knob, and then you can see it drip through here and then goes back into the motor. Stunning work, amazing quality. BTH magneto, exposed push rods here for the valves. Douglas carburetor here with this awesome choke. You just lift this up, slide it over, and it chokes off the air entry there. Side float here. Excuse me, this is the float needle here. So all you do to tickle it is literally push that down. Fuel comes in here, and the fumes exit through a jet in between the side float and this body here. There's a cylindrical throttle here with a hole in it. As you turn the throttle, this spins and the throttle hole opens up, allowing more air and fuel to roll in. I had to fix this. There's a coil spring in here. I'll post a video of me doing the repair because there's no parts available for Douglas carburetors, as you can imagine. So I repaired the coil spring in there so that it actually returns. So fuel and air enters into this beautiful intake manifold. I didn't know what these were, but I went on to I registered for the Douglas forum. The best we can tell, it's actually a heat exchanger. We found some other photos of a bike that has hard lines coming off of it that go over to each exhaust outlet. And so we're thinking that there's a passageway through there that just allows hot exhaust fumes to travel through a tube. It's heated a little bit during the way. This stunning flat tank, beautiful paint. It's just so regal. This is, kind of towards the end of that flat tank era. Girder front fork here, very interesting design with the spring on the back. Works wonderfully. 1922 actually would not have had a front brake. This I think came in the 30s actually, but it's a nice upgrade if you're actually going to ride one of these machines. Correct Douglas front fender here. It doesn't have a pedestrian slicer or license plate on it at the moment, but if you wanted to, you've got the mounts for it here. Nothing says the 20s like these elegantly shaped handlebars. And look at this thumb throttle, produced by Bowden. Stepping over to this gorgeous side of the motorcycle, you can see this masterpiece here, an exposed, polished flywheel. Now this of course spins the same speed as the crankshaft, so make sure you've got your laces tucked in. This bike has what you call a chain upon belt system, meaning that the power from the motor is transferred to the gearbox via a chain, but from the gearbox it's transferred to the rear wheel via a belt. There's a pulley on the other side of the 3-speed gearbox that powers the belt, and then there's a very large drive pulley, almost the same diameter as the rear rim, mounted to the rear wheel, and that's what spins the wheel. Rear drive pulley is also used as the surface for the rear brake. Check this out. The mounting system is so simple and primitive that it's elegant. It's just clamped onto every other spoke nipple with a very basic clamping system. This clutch is a real triumph of a piece as well. I've never seen anything like it. You can see how it's operated here. Simple pressure system, basic concepts of a modern clutch, but such an exposed and external way of doing it. I actually found a picture of the patent for this clutch, and this beautiful kickstart system here with what I would normally call a quadrant, but it's actually half a circle, is just very robust, but also insanely beautiful. Okay, I'm sure you're wondering about the lighting system, so let's talk about it. This is what's called a carbide lighting system. And what that means is this canister here, the bottom pops off, you unscrew this, and the bottom pops off here, and you put a carbide puck in there, a dry carbide puck. You put that back together, open this little cap here, and you fill it with water. What this does, this is a meter here, and it controls the rate at which the water you put in here drips onto the carbide. Okay, so when the water hits the carbide, it turns into a gas, and that gas escapes through a vent that goes into this tube here. The tube goes this way, splits both ways. One goes to the headlight, one goes to the tail light, and there's a burner in there that you light. Is that nuts? Crazy. Now you probably noticed I didn't actually light it in the intro. Do I want to? Hell yes! But I'm just terrified to burn this thing to the ground, which would be such a tragedy. So maybe we'll start it up one day, but not today. Sorry. Join me on the journey of this extravagant shifting mechanism. You've got a stunning hand shifter with a wooden handle here, running the 3-speed gearbox, and let's follow this. Over here, down through the tank, down here, bent curve here so you don't hit the exhaust when you're shifting, and then it goes through here, there's a support on the frame, and then it goes behind the exposed flywheel over to the selector on the gearbox. I mean, that's engineering, folks. Would you like me to start it? Me too. Okay. Pretty simple procedure on this, guys. You've seen it before. Petcock on. Tickling on this bike involves just literally pushing the needle float down with your hands. It should go back up on its own, but I'm having a little trouble with that. I don't need any choke right now. I'm going to open up the throttle a little bit, retard the timing a bit too. With all that said, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of A Bike and a Beer. Thank you so much for joining me. Guess what? I'll be back next week with a whole new bike and a whole new beer. Thank you so much. We'll see you then. Cheers.